Hello, Zeteo here. Today we're looking at a replay submission. In case you guys don't know, you can submit your own replays to the Academy chats. You do so by creating a thread, putting your replay in there, maybe a little information about the game, about you want worked on, and then you ping mentor, and one of us will get to you and help you through it. Not all of us do videos, by the way, but I do videos once in a while when I can. Hoping to do a lot more of them. But anyways, today we are taking a look at BiggieSouls. Let's get into it. Alright, so this is Angel Crossing. Looks like they're playing a 5v5. And today we are taking a look at air. Air is kind of a tricky thing to truly understand because it's quite different than the rest of the game. And so we'll have to just wait and see how you do. Right away here, I will point out, and this goes for any position, but you don't really want solar. They are very, very metal expensive. Ideally, you want wind. Now, some people think that solar is just always faster to build than wind, but there's actually a cutoff point. If the wind is stronger than 12, it is actually faster to build wind turbines. And it's basically always better on your resources because solar is so very expensive. So this really should be wind. Wind is crazy right now, so you could just have a bit more starting metal to like crank some stuff out if you do that instead. So that is definitely a good thing to keep in mind. And really, it's any position. You can do it with whatever. You want to have 65 energy income per second when you put down your lab. So whatever gets you there, ideally something that's cheaper, such as wind, with wind being so high right now. But yeah, going straight into an air plant here, getting that first constructor going. Ideally, you want to buy a T1 constructor from somebody else because air constructors only have 65 build power. Under cost and move speeds and stuff like that, there's the build there that says 65. 65 is not a whole lot. Aircons take a while to build, and they cost a lot of energy. Meanwhile, a ground con such as this guy here only costs, was it 110, I believe? Actually, let me take it off you so I can take a look. 120 for the Cortex 1. Cortex recently just got a +5 build power on their constructors, so 85 instead of 80. But yeah, sending 120-ish metal to your blue player asking to buy it is a little bit more ideal because this guy will take a long time to build stuff. Also, you're going straight into advanced solar. Wind's actually really good here. I wouldn't actually go into advanced solar on this map. Wind on this map, the average is better than an APHIS. It's better than any other form of energy other than a Geo. Geos are very, very efficient, so keep that in mind. Wind's very powerful on this map. Now when you do wind, you want to have a lot of storages. The more wind you have, the more energy storage you want, because that'll help smooth out the wind. When wind drops, you can bank on those higher values and just save up some of that energy, save it up for a rainy day when the wind is not so good. But yeah, so now you're adding on a lot of winds. That's great. This advanced solar is better than the basic ones, but it does cost a lot of energy. You are slow building it, so if you're fast building it with more stuff like concerts and stuff like that, it can go up a lot faster, but it drains all your resources and then you're slowing down your production. So it's not really great to do. And you're doing okay on energy in this situation because you're slow building it with this constructor. Now, I'd say you really don't need to do it, especially on this map again because the wind's so strong. Instead, you should want to get a construction turret out soon and try to grab these mechs sooner. So with this first constructor, if you do end up going for an aircon, you can fly it over here, grab these mechs, leave the commander at base, use that 300 build power, boost your lab. And that's kind of important. That's kind of really important because the one thing that's nice about aircons is they can traverse the map quickly. They can get to places quickly, fly over terrain, and all that. That's their superpower. So you want to cut this walking time with your commander, use an aircon or use a ground constructor. You can even transport the ground constructor, by the way. You have, you know, the option to build a light transport and just move it around. Same thing with your commander. You could actually build a heavy just to move them around. Now, for 2 mechs, it's probably not worth it for a heavy, but yeah, you can move around a ground con pretty easily. You can move around con turrets as well, by the way, in case you don't know that. You know, so you can like shuffle around where your build power is to like help build, you know, certain things. If you're trying to like upgrade, you know, say for example, some of these mechs later on when you're trying to upgrade them, you can like move around some con turrets as well as the T2 con, you know, to do that. Or you can build in, you know, your own air con. They are a bit expensive in terms of energy, but they are a little bit cheaper on metal compared to regular cons. But yeah, other than that, you are, let's see, you're getting out some fighters, all that good stuff. Let's see, let's put it on your view here so we're not looking at the enemy too hard. I'm not sure if you did any scouting, but scouting is a good idea early on just to see what's going on. With this many players on this map, you can expect that there's going to be an air player, so there shouldn't really be a surprise that, you know, you don't need to like hold off and not scout, you know, afraid to show your hand. They should probably assume that somebody is going to be air on this kind of map. So it's totally fine, you know, just maybe your first thing out, you build a scout, or second thing out after the constructor or something like that. Or really the first thing if you're buying, you know, a ground con. But yeah, at this point you need a little bit more build power. Your metal's starting to get a bit up there. But yeah, adding a construction turret at this point for sure. You can certainly afford it, especially after all these wins and especially after the advanced solar. You want something like 200 energy income for that construction turret, and you just want to have like, you know, roughly 200 metal, and then you can just like slap it down. You know, it takes a minute to build, or you know, I shouldn't say a minute. Sorry, I say a minute. What I mean, it takes a little bit longer time to build it. So having your commander nearby to assist it is very helpful with that too. You know, same thing with these other projects. Like the advanced solar takes a little bit of time. The geo definitely takes a little bit of time. 2 minutes, and you know, whatever other time. It was probably more like 3 minutes, 4 minutes, or maybe not 4 minutes. 4 minutes is kind of extreme, but yeah, this could take a while to build since you're building it slowly. And even though you're building it slowly with an aircon and nothing else, your energy is actually draining quite heavily because of this. Geos cost a lot of energy, 13,000 energy. Advanced solars also cost a lot. I mean, 4,000 isn't nearly as much as the geo, but I'm just saying, you know, if you do fast produce some of these things, and you should want to get them, you know, ASAP once you start building them, so that you benefit from having them sooner. And you know, you do that by, of course, having more build power assigned to it. But that will drain your energy very, very quickly. So I would say around now is usually when you might want to get advanced solar, but again, wind is so good that you don't really want it. I didn't point this out. I probably should have. Advanced solar and wind break even around 10 wind speed. So, you know, when wind is better than 10, it's actually better to just do wind. They are more efficient than the basic solar, but not by really that much. So, just something to think about. But yeah, let's take a look. You got, what was it, seven fighters out, 2 Shuris just in case. Looking okay so far. You could potentially have a lot more out though. You could potentially already be gearing up to do a bombing run if you know, wanted to do that. If you just like optimize this early bit a bit. Oh, Blue's helping you build this. That's nice of him. And then yeah, if you overflow here, it's not too big of a deal. It's helpful for everybody else. But you don't want to overflow a lot, because then, you know, teammates get reliant on it. You know, they think it's always going to be there, and it's not. Okay, so you blow the comm, so you're probably going T2 here. You're not even scooping it up yet. I would say try to blow it at the last possible second, because the commander does generate energy and metal. It generates, was it 25 energy and 2 metal a second? So if you're not going to eat it, you know, if you don't need to eat it right away, you know, just blow it up a little bit later when you actually do need it. Um, it kind of hurts me to see all these advanced solars because they're so inefficient. Yeah, wind is just so much better. I mean, if you're gonna do winds, you know, they do take some time to build. Since like you know, generally speaking, like, you know, advanced solars, they take up less space. You can just put them in your base, so the con turrets can help build them. And winds, you can't do that as much, so you kind of need more cons. So you can do things like build a bot lab just to get some cons out and then sell it. Like, that's really no big deal, especially once you have a bunch of con turrets out. You can start, you know, like reclaiming stuff like that pretty quickly. Okay, so your con turrets actually eat your commander. In case you don't know, it's ideal to leave just, you know, a tiny bit of metal so that later on, if your team needs it, you can resurrect it. You know, like in case there's like one commander left and you guys want like a, you know, just a secondary commander as a just in case. Like, it's helpful to just have it around, and you can just leave like 50 metal or less, and it's really not that big a deal. All right, so you are going bomber. I feel like you're a bit behind on the fighters, probably because of the opener, because of all this cost that's sunken into the advanced solar. But I don't really know, you know, how good the enemy air player is, so we don't get to see how many fighters they have. Unfortunately, radar coverage, you know, it's actually pretty good on the sides, but isn't very good in the middle, primarily because the enemy controls the big mexes here, which is kind of a big deal. Your team's kind of a little bit behind, but for you as the air player, it's hard to judge how many fighters are out. It's hard to see stuff coming. So something to just make note of is, you know, when you're playing air, it's very important. It's very, very important. I mean, it's important anyways for frontline players and stuff anyways, but it's especially important for air players to have as much radar coverage as possible. With that radar coverage, it's so much easier, so much quicker. Like, you just have so much more of a heads up of oh, there's like a bunch of air player or air units, you know, going down this side. Oh, there's probably a bombing. I need to get ready. I need to get my fighters in the position to defend against that. And the sooner that you have that heads up, the better. But yeah, it looks like you're going to do the bombing. Do you have any scouts with this? It does not look like you do, but you do have a general sense of where some buildings are. Okay, I think that was a scout. I think I missed it, but you did get some information, got shot down. I would say try to do... I should slow down and actually pause here before the bombing run. I would say right before the bombing run, send like a bunch of scouts out. You know, like one isn't really enough. They're cheap enough that you can just like build a handful. I usually do about 5. You know, that's 250 metal. It's not really that much for you know, really good information. And what I'll do is I'll just fan them out. I'll send, it's like one here, one here, one here, one here, and here. And then I'll order them to like move somewhere else so that they're like over here, you know, or something, you know, spread out again and then move back over here. You know, just get as much possible information as I can. And that will just help you pick good targets for bombing. Now, I want to talk about this a bit because I feel like even really good players do not bomb very well. You know, I think people have this perception of, oh, you just take your bombers and do this. Where you just like, you know, hit A, right click, and you're like, you know, fanning out some bombing runs, right? That's fine. If you're bombing blinds, or if you don't have a lot of APM, that's totally fine, but there is a better way to do it. If you have information, you can spread out your bombing runs. I kind of call it cloning, because that's the StarCraft 1 term for like spreading out like a spell cast to various units, because in StarCraft 1, if you select all your units in spell cast, they'll all cast the spell on that one target. So you need to like individually select different groups, or, you know, different ones to cast the spell individually. But yeah, that's totally old school. We got way better technology these days than back then. So, but the principle still applies here. You do a bombing run, like you can initially just set up like what you did here and just have like a line like that. But say you know that there's say you have some good scout information and you have like some wind here and some wind here. and went here, and then like, oh, there's build power sitting right here, and build power over here. Then you can say like, okay, it takes, 1 to 2 bombers per stack of wind. It takes like 2 or 3 bombers per stack of construction turrets. I mean, maybe you want to double up a little bit just in case your bomber gets shot down or something like that. But basically what I'm saying you could do is, say like select 3 bombers, hit them here. Select 3 more bombers, hit them here. So, just like chunk them up into like, okay, I want precision bombs. Because if you think about it, a lot of these are actually going to just bomb the same things. So let's take a look here. Okay, wow, okay. It ends up being a really good bombing, actually. You get all this stuff. Well, we'll just see how it happens. But yeah, so looking at that, if I had perfect information, and I knew exactly where the buildings were, because the buildings were so close together, I could actually just dedicate like 4 bombers to this area. I could have the other bombers going for red. Or I could have some bombers going here. Fan it, like spread it out. You can actually hit multiple players at once and do massive amounts of damage, especially if they're precision bombs, like I was saying. Okay, so now that you dropped your first payload, what do you do with them? This is very important as an air player if you're doing a bombing run, because yes, it's nice and good that you did this damage, but what about even more damage? Okay, so you go for the constructing reactor here, which is an okay target, especially since it's the air player. Like, it's kind of nice to knock the opposing air player down so that you just have more the rest of the game, right? So this isn't too bad, but it looks like you're going for the labs now, and I think you're not going to get it. Labs are generally not very good targets because they have so much hit points, so it's just like a very risky thing to do. And then even if you destroy it, I mean, in this case, like, they don't have build power, so like that's totally fine. And it's kind of fine that you're going for the air player still. But in my mind, like, after the first bombing, or you realize that you can't really get too much done, like, just move on to another player, and you can like just do more damage that way. Best targets to go for is build power. Second best targets to go for is energy, especially like if they're reliant on something big like this Geo, and especially something like a Geo or an Aphis, because obviously they explode and do a lot of other stuff. But again, like, advanced fusions have a lot of hit points, so like it's not the best target if you don't have that many bombers left. If you're gonna do that, you want to go for it ASAP. And in this case, obviously it's not built yet, so it's not going to explode. This Geo would be a good target. It has a bit less hit points, but it does have like more hit points than like wind turbines, obviously. So you need to kind of gauge how many bombers you need. I think it's something like at least like 16 dropping their payload onto an advanced Geo to take it out. I don't have exact numbers, that could be off, but it's something like that, I believe. So if you don't have, and so you kind of want like at least like 20, 25 bombers to go in there for a Geo, just because you can expect some of them to kind of get taken out as they go. But anyways, I mean, that was some nice damage on the air player, which is a good target. A good player could very well get out of this position though, just by building all the right things at the right time. Pink here is doing a reasonable job. They're add-on build power. That's what they need, since they have the metal and the energy. So I don't think that they're really going to be too far behind. But anyways, yeah, let's take a look at what you are doing now. All right, so you built a T2. Ideally, like, anytime you go T2, you want to look around and see, does somebody else already have T2? Because that lab costs a lot of money. And if you can just pay for the constructor itself and ferry it over to upgrade your mexes first, then you are spending a bunch of money on upgrading those mexes and not the lab. So you can kind of just do it a lot faster that way. Get your metal and stuff situated beforehand, and then circle back, get the lab. And while you do that, if you need metal, you can sell your T1 lab and all that stuff. Move around con turrets, just build those extractors quickly. and the Geo too. You know, as you need it. You know, you see your energy jumping around, so it is a good time to build it right now. Let's see. Then you got these other two. You really only got what, 4 mexes? Oh, okay. Yes, 4 mexes. It's not a whole lot. What are they? 2s though? 1.8s. Okay. Well, yeah, not the most metal in the world, but yeah. Okay. So once this Geo's done, I assume you're going to reclaim your advanced solars here. I mean, you might actually need some of that energy too, so maybe not all of them, but these are just, it's a lot of metal sitting here. 4,070 metal just sitting in these advanced solars. I'm not sure if the music's too loud for you guys, but I am going to turn it down just a little bit so you guys can hear me a little bit better, because it is kind of swelling a bit. Nice job with the Shuris. You're being proactive with them. You know, I'm sure you know this already, but just being aware of what's going on is the most important thing for an air player. You know, to be able to get Shuris in the position to defend, get fighters in the position to prevent bombings, all that stuff. So it's cool to see you on top of that a bit. One guy slips through, gets eaten, no problem. No problem. So this is a rough situation for your team in general. Actually, Pink's doing some extra damage back here. Or I'm sorry, Purple's doing some nice damage to Pink. Yeah, just keeping the air player back a little bit. I'm not sure what else they did with Red. They might have gotten in there, I'm not sure. But it gets kind of tricky because they own this position here. You know, these are bigger mexes in the middle. There's 2.6s on the side. So it's good that you have, your team has one of these sides, but unfortunately not the other. But yeah, then this is a big deal because that's a 5.3 and two 2.9s, and then there's 2.2s on this in this upper part and the bottom part. Bigger than a lot of the other mexes on this map. So it's a bit of extra money for them. So yeah, looking at the resources, I would think, yeah, they are ahead here by a bit. All right, so what are you doing? You're going with, I mean, obviously you're making 2-2 fighters. You're getting all your resources situated. You can build an anti-nuke, that's great. And this is actually really good. So, you know, just as a backline player, you know, thinking of ways to aid your team. You know, what do they need right now? Do they not need anything? Okay, great. Let me just like build another APHIS or something, you know, like, you know, little things like that can help a lot. Just like doing little bits of like, oh shit, we don't have an anti-air. Let's build that. Oh shit, we don't have, you know, a spy bot detector. Let's build one of those. You know, things like that is really nice. There's also things like the pinpointers that can be useful, but they're not built as often because they're a bit expensive, but it can be useful. Okay, so that's done. You do have a bit of metal bank here. You could build some more con turrets, I believe. Okay, so you're slow building this Geo though, unfortunately, so this is going to take forever. So what else are you doing? Okay, so you are upgrading these as well. Yeah, so I guess I would say, like, as a general theme, it's really good to try to put more build power into stuff so that it gets done quicker and you benefit from that faster. And so it's kind of better to do less but have enough build power to get it done quickly so that that thing is done and you're using it. So right now, like, you've been building this for a while already, it's still got a while to go. You don't have the extra energy income until it's done. So it's just kind of like sitting here, slowly going. Same with these mexes, you know, slowly going. They could have been built like really, really quickly if they had more support. And so I highly recommend, you know, having a couple of T1 transports, be able to move around some of this stuff. Or at least one, you know, just have one to like move around some contours to help stuff out. Interesting choice going for dragons here. I mean, I suppose you can rush this out and do some stuff. Unfortunately, it's slow built. I mean, these are all slow builds because you're out of metal now and you're slow building this stuff as well. I mean, I shouldn't say slow built. It's more or less that the other stuff is slow built. And this is where the majority of your money's going, which I suppose is kind of fine. Just, yeah, in my mind, it's just better to have this done already, and then have this stuff done already, then go into Dragon. And by this amount of time into the game, you can certainly have all that done already. Like, you could already have, like, several aphises if you wanted. So yeah, just little inefficiencies, you know, mostly with build power, just making sure that you have enough build power to get stuff done quickly. And then just, like, maybe, you know, you could start adding on some converters at this point with this getting done, or you could start reclaiming some of this, get some metal back to pour that into getting this faster. Now, obviously, you know, most of your build power is here, so it's actually going to go to the Dragon, so it's not as useful here, and you kind of need it at the moment, so not great with exactly what you're doing, but if you were doing the Geo first and the Mexes first, you know, you could kind of anticipate the Geo getting done and maybe adding some, you know, a few converters or something, or start reclaiming these so that you can pour more of that metal into the Geo. I don't know. I hope that makes sense. I know I'm kind of harping on it a lot, but it is such a strong move to make to do that like that. All right, so your Dragon, where do you send it? You send it out here. It's going for mexes and stuff. He's building anti-air. I assume you're not going for the base because there's anti-air probably already there. Okay, this is a nice thing to go for. Now Dragons, you know, they of course can take a lot of hits, so you know, this is kind of a nice move to take out stacks of wind turbines that you see all clustered together like that. Unfortunately, you didn't quite get that. See, I'm not sure if you're moving this around, but it is more ideal to go for things like the build power and energy when possible. Some of that might have just been your Dragon automatically attacking. Here comes the fighter, so that's going to be taken out pretty easily now. Yeah, Dragons are a nice thing to rush out or a thing to pull off later, like, in masses. But slow building them in that, like, middle area is not so great because they just... Like, if you're sending one out at a time to attack, it's like fighters will just show up and destroy them, especially at this point. I mean, it's hard to gauge because, you know, this isn't some high-level lobby. So it's hard to gauge what kind of fighters your opponent has out. T2 fighters do a lot better against Dragons than T1 fighters. But yeah, at a certain point, it's like they just won't have, or they will have, the T2 fighters to just quickly take out the Dragons. So you gotta start to be careful about how you use them. As it turns out, Red, you know, taking a lot of damage. Your team doing a nice job, just kind of hounding Red quite a bit. You know, Red being... Actually, Red isn't the strongest player. I should actually point that out because I think this means that you guys set the auto balance to off, and so I don't know. Then the colors don't match up with the top players. You know, it doesn't go in order in terms of OS. I'm gonna speed up a little bit here since we're just kind of chilling, making some fighters, making some Dragons. Actually, where'd your Dragons go? Okay, you got 2 Dragons coming out here. Could potentially do something here, but it's hard to know how much anti-air exists there. Okay, so you are going in there. You see quite a bit of fighters. You get out of there. This is nice. Okay, so there is some anti-air here from purple. Actually, it's only this, so there really isn't much, but it's nice to have that as a safe place to retreat to. The fighters take out some enemy fighters. Yeah, and if you're ever unsure of what your opponents are doing, actually, I think it sounds probably good, but it's a little loud in my ear, so I was turning down my headset. But if you're ever unsure of what your opponents have in terms of anti-air or air, you can, like at this point, when you start having a bit more income, you can have, like, you can just like, well, I mean, you could do it with T2 scouts, but I was going to say you could build a T1 lab, you know, pause this lab, build a T1 lab, build like 20, 30 scouts, and then just like send them in and just see what the fuck's going on. Because, you know, information is just so important. Now, you might not actually get that much information out of that, but to me, like, it is sometimes worth it to just know what you're looking at in terms of defense. But yeah, just fan them out, you know, send them across the map, see what's going on. And then it's a lot safer to make bombing plays. There's a small hiccup there. Hopefully we're still recording, so I gotta check this real quick. Hopefully that didn't affect the recording too much, if at all. Yeah, getting information, you know, scouting, very good stuff. You do have the option to build some defensive type units, like, you know, such as, sorry, the, I mean, I guess you can use Dragon that way. You could use Wasp. I believe your Dragons were just over here. Unfortunately, they are moving on and getting picked off by the fighters here. Okay, your fighters come in. Maybe you can save one of them. Okay. Unfortunately, I think you missed that purple is about to get attacked here. Bunch of pawns ran through. They could have done massive amounts of damage to this build power, but instead they just ran up here and died. It's a purple's army. So, didn't get a lot done. Unfortunately, there's also these ticks in the back here, so he's going to lose some build power. It happens when you're a little bit unaware. This map is kind of crazy in that there's so many like different attack paths throughout the map. You know, there's these windy bits in the middle that make it very interesting. Yeah. Alright, so are you scaling? Not so much. So you're trying to do stuff with the dragons and whatnot. Yeah, I mean, maybe this does pan out. I'm not 100% sure at this point. But generally speaking, you do want to scale at some point. Because if you don't, then you just get, like, every moment that you're not scaling, you're just getting behind if you're not doing damage. Something to be careful of. Oh, and you don't really have that many fighters out either. You kind of need to prioritize that a little bit too. Okay, I'm actually really curious to know what Pink has at this point. Okay, so they do have an Aphis up. They do have converters. T2 mexes. Okay, they didn't rebuild these, so they don't have that. So, I mean, I think you're probably sitting a little bit better. Yeah, you're certainly sitting a little bit better in terms of income, but at the same time, Pink is back online. It's essentially what I'm getting at. And Yellow is also throwing up some fighters to help against you. So, you know, it's something to like kind of keep track of, to just see what you can and can't do. Okay, so you actually go through a T3 lab. I like this. This signals to me that you're thinking about stuff beyond just air. Unfortunately, I mean, your income's not that bad. I was gonna say, unfortunately, like, it's not that great either. And so, yeah, if you're gonna do something like this, like, do this first as 1, do this as 2. Because this is just sitting here eating up metal, whereas the metal could have been put into making this a little bit faster. So yeah, things like that certainly help. But I would actually scale up, like, since you didn't scale for a little while, I would actually just, like, quick build, like, I don't know, like 5 Aphises with, you know, with enough converters, like, in between them to, you know, obviously start producing some extra metal. Would be pretty helpful. There are things you can do, like, you can send, like, maybe not a T2 constructor, but, like, you can send T1 constructors, grab this real quick. You know, for a little bit of extra metal. As long as they survive, you know, like, what is it, like 25 seconds. They pay off, you know, they pay for themselves. And actually, these are 2.6s, so it'd be even less time than that. Alright, so then you do an Aphis. Yeah, so this is just too much going on at once. I think you realize that and start reclaiming this. Because, yeah, you certainly want to do, like, when it comes to Aphis and T3 especially, you want to do one or the other. You do not want to do both until you have a bunch of income already. You know, the more build power, the more metal and stuff that you're pouring into one thing, the faster that one thing is going to produce or be done. So it's really cool that you reclaim that. Unfortunately, you don't have enough storage to eat that. So some of that went to your teammates instead. And you're adding on more build power because you realize you need to add it on. Yeah, Aphises take so much build power to efficiently build. In fact, regular fusions are more efficient than Aphises for quite a while, honestly. Because it takes so long to build the Aphis. Like, if you put all the build power into a fusion, it gets done so quickly that it pays for itself and then some way sooner than your Aphis is done. You can actually build four fusions by the time you get your Aphis done, and you're generating more energy per second than that Aphis. Even though it costs more to do those 4 fusions, you're actually like making more from it a lot sooner. It's really not until you get like up to like, let's see, this is 24. Yeah, I mean, this is a reasonable amount to be putting into here. You know, so it's not really a bad time to go Aphis compared to fusion, but you know, it's just that your metal income's a little bit low to support that much build power, and so it's kind of better to, like, you kind of overbuilt some con turrets here, mainly because you just floated so much after eating that lab. You could eat this lab as well, just to get that bit of metal for it. And then they'll get done super quick. You just rebuild the lab afterwards. Or build that T3 lab or whatever. Alright, so you're finally getting rid of the advanced fusions here. Or, I'm sorry, the advanced solar. Keep your regular fusions. They're still helpful. Yeah, this is starting to look pretty grim for your team, but it looks like Purple is sending out the spam. The spam in droves. You do see a lot of fighters right here. And that's just yellow. You know, obviously, pink's going to have something too, right? So it's hard for you to get in there right now, so it is a good time to kind of sit back and eco a little bit and think of a different angle to attack. But of course, you do still want to make enough fighters to not die to bomb and run. But it's kind of hard to do that as the only air player when you're up against 2 people. So it is good to see that you are up against T1 fighters from light pink, and there's really not that many of them. These are probably T1 as well. You saw them earlier. Yeah, they're T1. So you know, maybe you can manage that. Let's see, is this bombing play? Okay, this is just a fighter suicide play. Okay. I don't recommend doing what yellow just did there, unless you like really need scouting information, because you're essentially going into enemy territory where there's likely anti-air to trade fighters. You don't want to do that. You're just like throwing away fighters. So that was really bad for them and really good for you. But that does paint the picture of, you know, there are a lot of fighters out here, and you just lost all of yours. So that should be a big red flag of, you know, we need to worry about that, because if they do a bomb and run, you know, a significantly big bomb and run, then we're probably screwed, because it's very unlikely that any of your allies are getting enough anti-air, considering, you know, the ground war's not going all that well. So, something to certainly keep in mind. I do see you have a lot of metal sitting at this point. Yeah, it is just a matter of more build power right now. Now, it's kind of absurd how much build power you actually need as the air player, because aircraft just takes so much time to build. But just like another solid block of concerts. And yeah, this is getting done fast enough that you could even get like a second factory. You know, whether it be a T3 or another T2 air lab. Because you're not really spending right now, and they are coming out pretty sufficiently fast, so... okay, I apparently missed this, but Purple's also going air, so that actually gives you guys some opportunities to do things like bombing runs. Now, I think there's a conception of once enough T2 grounds anti-air is up and there's fighters, like, it's really hard to get in there with bombers, and it is. But I think there's a big conception of you just can't get in there. And that's certainly not true. You can actually absolutely get in there if you build enough bombers. You know, since they can stack, and, you know, since they fly over stuff, like, it's It's really like the one mode of transportation where you can actually overwhelm the defenses, because you're not hindered by like all your units like walking on top of each other and whatnot. So you can actually do stuff with it. So you can do a bombing run if you coordinate with purple a little bit. Also note, like I'm not sure if you noticed this while you're playing, but there are a lot of T2 gunships here to defend against the spam. So purple's actually like throwing away a lot of these pawns. Not that it's completely useless, because it's helpful here and it's helpful for keeping your opponent back, but yeah, there's just like a lot of money that's kind of going out the window, unfortunately. Wow, Teal's really... I mean, I suppose at this point, yeah, players should absolutely have a lot of income coming in. But also, I guess to... what's the word? I guess to give you some credit back, it is hard to judge that. It's hard to judge, like, is the game really going to go on that long? Am I needed for, like, we're pushed so far back that it's like, can I really afford to make an APHIS? But certainly at this point, having a bunch of APHISes is very powerful stuff. So that's why you see people greed for it so hard. Because, there's a point when you reach where you have enough APHISes to support building more APHISes as well as something big like a T3 lab. And then you're all set. You can keep scaling both. You can scale units and scale, eco. So that's what a lot of people, I think, dream of when you see people doing these gigantic APHIS farms. All right, Perp's going in. You're going in. You see the bombers. You're reacting. That's awesome. It's really, really good to see it. Perfect reaction. I'm not even sure if you got anyone. Yeah, no one notified you. You just saw that. And, Perp's over here, take care of those gunships and whatnot too. So this is really nice. Unfortunately, though, at this point, this does mean that a lot of those fighters were in enemy territory here, being taken out by the anti-air. So it might be a little bit harder than new bombers, but at the same time, you guys also just massacred a bunch of fighters. So this really could still work. But you're going to want some cannon fodder for these bombers, and hopefully you coordinate with purple here. Or, hopefully purple sees it and is like, okay, yeah, purple sees it. You guys don't even need to talk about it. You're so coordinated. So this is awesome to see. That's how you know that, you guys are good, experienced players who are, like, reacting to each other. Oh, wow, I didn't even see all these fighters. I don't know where those fuck came from. Apparently I missed it. But yeah, your bombers come in. Massive damage to yellow. Awesome job there. Really nice target. Obviously, the APHIS farm is huge. And then you go straight to the other APHIS farm. So this is probably going to blow up too. Nice. And that's GG right there. So yeah, I mean, nice job. I mean, I think
battle ended.
You're very good about reacting to stuff, which means you should be the air player. So I'm really glad to see you being the one that's like, hey, I can do air, but I would prefer to do this. And then you realize, like, your ally, maybe isn't going to be as capable with air, so you switch over there, even though it's not your preferred spot. And now you're reacting to stuff so well that you are a good air player because of that. But yeah, if we clean up some of those like macro things that are slowing you down a bit, you can be an awesome player. Because not everyone's able to have that kind of awareness to see all that stuff going on. It's really easy to miss it. And so, yeah, I mean, I'd be really curious to know how far you go, once you get the macro cleaned up a little bit. You can certainly get a much higher OS with that kind of play. But anyways, that wraps it up for me. Of course, let me know if you got questions in that thread that I was talking about earlier. I will mention once again that, in case you guys are listening and don't know, you can submit replays for us to analyze, for the mentors to analyze within the Academy chat. All you got to do is create a thread, put your replay in there. Ideally, the replay you get from the replay site, and then just ping mentors and maybe get some information if you're, if like your game name is different than your Discord name, maybe let us know about that too, and we'll get back to you and help you out. But yeah, that sums it up for me. Hope you guys, I hope everyone watching learned something, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching.